The following presentation will talk about how to implement a discrete trial training program into your classroom for students with autism spectrum disorder. Discrete trial training, or DTT, is an instructional strategy that focuses on the acquisition of skills and is supported through a series of prompts, modeling, and positive reinforcement. Discrete trial training was invented by Dr. Lovaas in the 1980s while he was working at the University of California. He is truly a pioneer for instructional strategies for children with autism spectrum disorder, as well as applied behavior analysis. An individual trial consists of 3 basic steps. First, an instruction is provided. This is known as an SD, followed by a student response, and then a consequence. And typically this consequence, if it's a correct answer, is positive reinforcement. If not, the child is redirected and this starts again. Discrete trial training can be implemented across skill domains. This can be used to teach academic readiness skills, functional life skills, academic skills, or desired behaviors. Here is an example of an individual trial, which is known as an individual learning opportunity. First, a child is provided with an instruction. In this example, they're presented with various tokens with the SD touch red. The student responds by touching the red card. This is the response, followed by the consequence, which is the reinforcement. Great job! Student gets a high five and a tangible reinforcer when appropriate for the student. These consequences are individualized based on the student's needs. After a trial, there are 2 ways to respond based on if the student was correct or incorrect. If a student is correct, you want to immediately provide the child with reinforcement. You want to provide some wait time so that the child can engage with said reinforcer, and then you can begin the next trial. If a student provides an incorrect response, you want to provide verbal feedback and prompt and model the correct answer. Then you're going to provide the prompt again and provide the support needed so that the student can find the correct answer. And then you provide the positive reinforcement for the correct response, provide the reinforcement, and then allow the student to engage with the reinforcer. So the cycle begins again. There are 9 steps to developing and implementing a DTT program. In the following slides, we'll review these steps. In order to develop meaningful goals for discrete trial training, a teacher should take multiple steps. First, they should consult state standards and any prior assessments given to the student for guidance. This can help determine what the student needs to know and where they need to go. After using the assessments, teachers should determine a PLOP, or present levels of performance. This is where the student is right now. And just because 2 students are achieving at the same level academically does not mean that their present levels of performance are the same. Some important things that should go into this PLOP is students' reinforcement and what types of prompts they often need and respond to. This information is crucial for developing an effective program. Finally, from this information, you can develop goals. Goals are individualized and typically they align with either state standards or measures given on a curriculum-based measure. These goals can determine where you are going with your discrete trial training program. Next, you need to decide how to teach a given skill. The first step of this is to develop a task analysis and break the skill down into small steps that can be mastered. You want to list all of these steps in a sequential order, and you want to ensure that the child has met any prerequisite skills that are needed to learn this new skill. Here is a way to think about how to develop a progression of prompts in an academic skill, such as identifying numerals. In the beginning, a student would be matching with no distractors, and then they progress through matching, handing over, touching, and then responding verbally if possible. And then we repeat these steps with added distractors, followed by working in the natural environment and moving the skill to a maintenance skill. This progression promotes generalization and independence with the skill. An easy to implement and easy to understand data collection system is one of the cornerstones of a discrete trial training program. There are some key features that you should feature on your data collection sheet. First and foremost, the student's name, along with the goals that you're working on, and dates are most important. You also want to mention the specific skill that's being taught, a prompting level, and the ability to graph or convert numbers into a percentage so that we can track growth in a meaningful way. Featured on this page is an example of a data collection sheet used in one of the programs that I work with. Graphing the data helps us identify trends and determine the overall effectiveness of the programs that we're given. With this information, we can make data-driven decisions. When you're reporting results, you should make sure that you have information graphed for each skill. You should also note the level of independence by noting what type of prompts are provided, if any. Trials should be implemented in a very specific environment. Many classrooms designed for teaching children with autism spectrum disorder have rooms that are specifically designed for discrete trial training. If your classroom does not have this, you should make sure you set up a small area that's a quiet place that has very limited distractions. The space should be sufficient enough for instruction as well as a place for a student to take a short break. There should be easy access to peers to increase generalization and adequate light and seating for all of those who are involved. The overall intensity of a discrete trial program should be determined on an individual basis. You should consider a child's age, their readiness skills, and their overall level of independence. Many teachers struggle to find the time to implement a full discrete trial training program in their classroom. Some tips for doing this are first to train all of your staff members to deliver trials and collect data. This way, you can have multiple people implementing the program. Another idea is to schedule trials in conjunction with related service providers. So while a speech therapist or occupational therapist are running a small group, a teacher could be doing some trials. Another consideration is to do small group or large group trials to increase maintenance and generalization of previous skills taught. And the next tip is to simply think outside of the box. So how can you work this into your schedule in a meaningful way? Another thing to consider is computer-based trials, which can be used to help reinforce skills. There are some programs that are specifically designed with children with autism spectrum disorder in mind, including Boardmaker Online. These can be set up in the manner of a trial where students are provided with appropriate support and prompts when they have an incorrect answer. This can help students, again, generalize the information that they learn in your individualized trials. Having all of your materials on hand is truly crucial for the success of a discrete trial program. You want to make sure that you have all of the materials that are featured on this slide. It's important that in the beginning and end of each day, you ensure that all of your materials are located in the same place. Organization is truly key for this program. To begin a trial, you want to first guide a student to the instructional area. You want to ensure that you have engaged the student's attention and allow them to select a reinforcer that will be used throughout the trial sessions. Next, you're going to give an SD or an instructional response, instructional prompt, and wait for the response. If the student responds correctly, you're going to deliver that reinforcer. If the student does not respond correctly, you want to provide feedback and begin the trial again. If the student responds correctly, you want to make sure that you provide the reinforcer and note what prompting is needed. If the student does not respond correctly, you want to provide an additional prompt with the support that is needed for the student to get the correct answer. So this could be additional prompting. And then finally, you want to repeat this process for the targeted number of trials for that skill. A key component of discrete trial training is mass trials. This is when trials are done in a sequential order to reinforce skills that were previously learned and repeating new skills in order to ensure that a student is mastering new skills while maintaining skills that have been previously taught. In this, teachers begin with teaching a skill that has already been mastered and we record the results. This can help engage a child and start a training session off on the right foot as they are getting a correct response and being reinforced immediately. Next, a teacher is going to introduce a first trial of a new skill, and this is going to be repeated multiple times. Then a more difficult level is introduced, and until a student masters that with a given criteria, that skill is repeated. If a child does not pass steps correctly, then the trial is re-implemented before it is moved to maintenance or a mastered skill. When a student consistently demonstrates mastery of a particular topic, you want to ensure that you are increasing the likelihood of discrimination and generalization. Discrimination can happen when you introduce distractors to ensure that the child is identifying the appropriate stimuli that you are requesting. Distractors should be something that have been introduced previously in isolation, and you want to start with a field of 2 and then increase as the child continuously identifies the correct stimulus. Then, for generalization, you want to introduce various stimuli that are associated with the same criteria. For example, if you're asking a child to find a color, you want to introduce multiple things that are that color. For example, in the first trial, you may say, find blue, and you have a set of blocks, and in the second, you have a set of cars. the child is identifying the color, you want to ensure that they are associating that with that particular feature. When you are doing generalization, you want to provide specific verbal feedback that identifies both of the associated characteristics. So in this trial, the SD would be find blue. The child would point to the blue block, and you would say, "Great job, you found the blue block. Nice work." After a system is implemented over a series of weeks or months, it's important to review the student progress to see how they are progressing and what skills have been mastered. You want to ask questions such as, are you moving skills along to a maintenance schedule? And are these skills being maintained? Are skills being mastered and demonstrated with other adults, with other natural reinforcers, and when new stimuli are introduced? You also want to make sure that you are progressing in a logical and systematic manner. So you want to constantly be thinking, what skills are coming next? You can consult the curriculum guide and a child's IEP to make sure that you're addressing what needs to be addressed. And you can also consult curriculum-based measures that should be given multiple times throughout a school year to assess for new targets. Teaching, reflecting, modifying, and repeating this process ensures that a child will progress and master the skills that are needed. Thanks for watching this presentation on discrete trial training. There are additional tools in the resources section of this week's module to help you complete your discrete trial training assignment. Good luck!